"You're not good enough for my family," the millionaire told her. 4 years later, he saw triplets. "Don't leave early, my beautiful family. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to your own family channel, Mr. Peter Family. May every woman be crowned with unshakable courage, quiet wisdom, and a peace that no storm can steal. May your heart stay soft even when life grows hard, and may every wound you carry become a doorway to deeper strength. You are the dawn after a long night, the warmth in a cold world, the gentle power that keeps families standing. May your hopes rise again, may your footsteps be guided, and may your soul rest in the arms of grace. My precious family, don't fall silent tonight. Your voice is the heartbeat of this home. A like is a seed of blessing, a comment is a chorus of unity. This is Mission 1000 Blessings. For every woman who loves fiercely, prays quietly, and rises again and again, if you carry love in your heart, like this video. If your spirit walks in faith, comment, "I'm with Mr. Peter." The iron gates opened like jaws, swallowing Loretta King into a world where she didn't belong. White Houston's hand rested on her knee as his car climbed the winding driveway, past manicured hedges that probably cost more than her annual salary. She smoothed her navy dress for the third time, hating herself for the nervous gesture. "They're going to love you," White said, but his thumb pressed hard against the steering wheel. Loretta watched his face instead of the mansion materializing through the trees. She'd learned to read him over the past 8 months. The tightness around his mouth meant he was lying to himself more than to her. The Houston estate sprawled across the Connecticut hillside like a declaration of permanence, stone and glass and old money. Loretta had grown up in 7 different foster homes, each one smaller than the garage coming into view. She touched the simple gold necklace at her throat, White's first gift to her, and stepped out of the car into air that smelled like roses and judgment. Eleanor Houston waited at the front entrance, her silver hair arranged in a style that probably required an appointment. Her smile belonged on a portrait, beautiful and completely lifeless. "Mother, this is Loretta." White's voice carried a warning Loretta couldn't quite decode. "How lovely." Eleanor's hand felt like paper in Loretta's palm. Her eyes traveled from Loretta's drugstore pumps to her carefully pressed dress, cataloging every deficit. "White mentioned you work in healthcare." "I'm a nurse at Mercy General Trauma Unit." "How noble." The word arrived wrapped in silk contempt. "Bethany's inside. She's been so eager to meet you." The foyer could have fit Loretta's entire apartment. A chandelier hung overhead like frozen stars. Family portraits lined the walls, generations of Houston faces, all of them pale, all of them belonging. Bethany Houston appeared from a doorway, blonde and sharp-edged in the way only private schools and country clubs could create. She looked Loretta up and down with the efficiency of a jeweler spotting a fake, "So you're the one." Bethany air-kissed near Loretta's cheek. "White's been so secretive. Now I understand why." The meaning landed like a slap, disguised as curiosity. They moved to a sitting room where every surface gleamed with inherited wealth. Loretta perched on a cream sofa that probably cost more than her car, hyper-aware of her own body taking up space it wasn't meant to occupy. "Tell us about yourself, Loretta." Eleanor settled into a wing-back chair like a queen holding court. "White's been vague about your background." "There's not much to tell. I grew up here in Connecticut, worked my way through nursing school, and I love what I do." "Here in Connecticut? Which part?" Bethany's eyes glittered. "Different places. I moved around quite a bit." "Family?" Eleanor asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Loretta felt White shift beside her. "I was in foster care." The silence stretched like taffy. Eleanor's teacup paused halfway to her lips. "How unfortunate." Eleanor set the cup down with precision. "These things leave such marks, don't they? Instability in childhood." Heat crawled up Loretta's neck. "It taught me resilience." "I'm sure." Bethany examined her manicure. though I've read studies about attachment disorders in foster children, difficulty forming healthy relationships, trust issues, that sort of thing. White's hand found Loretta's, squeezed hard. Bethany. What? I'm just making conversation. Bethany's smile could cut glass. I think it's admirable, really. Working in a hospital, dealing with all that stress and trauma, I could never handle such environment. All those emergencies and difficult people. Loretta saves lives, White said, his voice tight. Of course she does. Eleanor's expression remained pleasant as poison. It's just such a different world from what we know. The hours must be exhausting. I imagine there's little time for anything else. Cultural events, social obligations, the kinds of things that matter in certain circles. Loretta released White's hand. I manage just fine. I don't doubt your work ethic. Eleanor leaned forward slightly. But surely you understand that White has responsibilities, expectations. His father's planning to transition leadership soon, and that requires a certain kind of partnership. Someone who understands our world. Mother, White started. Let her finish, Loretta said quietly. Eleanor's eyes met hers with something almost like respect for the defiance. I'm simply being honest. Dear White needs someone who can navigate his life. Society functions, board dinners, charity galas. Someone who comes from a similar background, who understands the weight of family legacy. You mean someone white, Loretta said. The words hung in the air like smoke. Bethany gasped theatrically. Eleanor's expression froze into marble. That's not what I said. Eleanor's voice could have frosted windows. But it's what you meant. Loretta stood. Thank you for the tea. She walked out of the room with her spine straight, ignoring White calling her name. She made it to the foyer before he caught her arm. Loretta, wait. I'm sorry. They had no right. They had every right. She pulled free. This is their home, their world. You should probably take me back now. The drive to her apartment passed in silence. Thick enough to suffocate White's jaw stayed clenched, his hands strangling the steering wheel. Loretta watched the landscape blur past, feeling something crack inside her chest that she couldn't name yet. He didn't pull into her parking lot. Instead, he stopped at a hotel 2 blocks away, killed the engine. We need to talk. Those 4 words, Loretta had heard them before, in other relationships that ended in parking lots and coffee shops and anywhere except the places that mattered. Your family hates me, she said. They don't know you. They don't want to know me. Loretta turned to face him. And you knew this would happen. You knew, and you brought me there anyway. White's silence confirmed everything. My father wants me to take over, he finally said. It's everything he's built, everything our family stands for. And I'm a complication. You're not. He stopped, started again. This is complicated. Say what you came here to say, White. His throat worked. The man who commanded boardrooms, who moved through the world like he owned it, couldn't look at her. You're not good enough for my family. The words came out flat, rehearsed, like he'd practiced them with his father, polished them until they sounded almost reasonable. Loretta felt her lungs constrict. Not from surprise. She'd known this was coming from the moment Eleanor's eyes had dismissed her, but hearing it, spoken in White's voice, carved something out of her that wouldn't grow back. Okay, she said. Loretta. Okay, she repeated, reaching for the door handle. I never meant to hurt you. She looked at him then, really looked at him, saw the coward behind the handsome face, the boy who would always choose his family's approval over everything else. Yes, you did, she said softly. You just hoped it wouldn't matter. Loretta stepped out of the car into the dusk. She didn't run, didn't cry, didn't give him the satisfaction of watching her break. She walked across the parking lot like a woman who knew her worth, even if the man behind her never would. Inside her apartment, she locked the door and slid down against it. Only then did she let the tears come, hot and silent, mourning not just White Houston, But the naive version of herself, who'd believed love could bridge any divide, she didn't know yet about the life growing inside her. Didn't know that in a few weeks, a test would show 3 pink lines that would change everything. All she knew was that she'd been measured against a scale she could never hope to balance, found wanting for reasons that had nothing to do with her heart. And White Houston's car was already pulling away, taking the easy road home. Chapter 2. 3 pink lines. Loretta's bathroom felt smaller than usual, the walls pressing in while she stared at the pregnancy test balanced on the sink edge. 1 line meant freedom. 2 meant complications. 3 lines materialized like accusations. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on the counter, the porcelain cold against her palms. The test clattered into the sink, but those 3 pink lines burned into her vision regardless of where she looked. It had been 2 weeks since the hotel parking lot, 2 weeks of throwing herself into double shifts at Mercy General, pretending the nausea was from exhaustion and the crying jags were from stress. Her period was late, but Loretta's cycle had never been predictable. Foster care and poverty had taught her body to be irregular. This wasn't irregular. This was catastrophic. She took 4 more tests. Every single one bloomed pink in triplicate, mocking her with their consistency. Nina burst through the apartment door an hour later, grocery bags swinging from both arms. "I brought ice cream and wine and those chips you—" She stopped, reading Loretta's face. Oh God, what happened? Loretta held up the forest of used pregnancy tests, lined up on the coffee table like evidence. Jesus! Nina dropped the bags. "How many did you take?" "All of them. The drugstore had 7 different brands." "Okay." Nina sat down hard on the couch. "Okay. Do you want to keep it?" "That's not even a question." Loretta's hand moved to her stomach instinctively. "But I need to tell him." Nina's expression shuttered. "The man who called you not good enough. That man. He has a right to know. He gave up his rights when he chose his racist family over you." Nina grabbed Loretta's shoulders. "You don't owe him anything." But Loretta couldn't shake the feeling that hiding this would make her just as much of a coward as White had been. She'd looked into mirrors in 7 different foster homes and promised herself she'd never be the kind of person who took the easy way out. The next morning, she drove to Houston Pharmaceuticals. The building stabbed into the sky like a monument to everything White's family valued: power, legacy, permanence. The lobby gleamed with marble and privilege. Loretta approached the reception desk in her scrubs, still smelling like antiseptic from her overnight shift. "I need to see White Houston." The receptionist's smile was professional frost. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but Mr. Houston doesn't see anyone without an appointment. If you'd like to leave your name and number, just tell him Loretta King is here." The receptionist's fingers paused over her keyboard. Something flickered across her face. Recognition, maybe pity, 1 moment. She disappeared through a door marked private. Loretta stood in the lobby, surrounded by Houston family photographs documenting generations of wealth. White appeared in several of them, progressively older, progressively more refined into the man who'd broken her heart. Movement caught her eye. Through the glass wall of a conference room, she saw them. White stood at the head of a long table, his suit probably worth a month of her rent. Eleanor and Richard Houston flanked him like bookends. Bethany perched on the table's edge, laughing at something. And next to White, close enough to touch, stood a blonde woman Loretta had never seen before. The woman's hand rested on White's arm with the comfort of familiarity. Loretta watched White lean toward the blonde, watched him smile in that private way she'd thought belonged only to their stolen moments together. 2 weeks. He'd waited 2 weeks before moving on. Eleanor glanced up, her gaze sweeping the lobby. Her eyes locked onto Loretta. The older woman's expression shifted from surprise to calculation to something cold and final. Eleanor said something to White, gestured toward the lobby. He looked up. Their eyes met through the glass. Loretta saw recognition, then panic, then something worse. Resignation, like she was a problem he'd hoped wouldn't resurface. Eleanor moved toward the lobby door with purpose. The receptionist reappeared, her professional smile strained. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Houston is in meetings all day. If you'd like to make an appointment." "No." Loretta backed toward the exit. "No, that's fine." "Miss King?" The receptionist's voice carried genuine concern now. "Are you all right?" Loretta caught her reflection in the chrome elevator doors. Dark circles carved shadows under her eyes. Her scrubs hung loose where she'd already started losing weight to morning sickness. She looked exhausted and broke, and exactly like someone who didn't belong in this pristine temple of wealth. Eleanor emerged from the conference room. Moving fast, Loretta ran. She made it to her car before the tears started. Made it 3 blocks before she had to pull over, her hands shaking too badly to drive safely. She sat in a grocery store parking lot and cried until her throat was raw. White Houston had made his choice. He'd chosen the blonde woman, chosen his family's approval, chosen everything that didn't include Loretta or the child growing inside her. She drove home in a fog. Nina was waiting on the apartment steps. "Well?" "He's already with someone else." Loretta's voice came out hollow. "His mother saw me. She was coming to have security remove me. I left before she could." "Good." Nina pulled her into a fierce hug. "You don't need him. You don't need any of them." That night, Loretta sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, surrounded by job listings. Connecticut meant running into White everywhere. Connecticut meant his family's influence poisoning any opportunity she found. Connecticut meant raising her child in the shadow of the Houstons. Portland, Oregon had openings at a community health clinic. The pay was decent, the cost of living manageable, 3,000 miles between her and the man who'd thrown her away. She circled the listing in red ink. Her phone buzzed. White's name lit up the screen. Loretta stared at it for 5 rings before declining the call. He tried twice more. She blocked his number. Whatever White Houston wanted to say, she didn't need to hear it. He'd said everything that mattered in a hotel parking lot when he called her not good enough. She placed her hand on her stomach, on the tiny cluster of cells that would become her child. "Just us now," she whispered, "and that's going to be enough." Within a week, she'd given notice at Mercy General. Within 2, she'd packed her entire life into her car. Nina drove her to the airport, both of them crying in the departure lane. "You call me every day," Nina demanded. "Every single day." "Promise. And when this baby comes, I'm flying out there. Try to stop me." Loretta boarded the plane with 1 suitcase and a secret growing inside her. Below, Connecticut receded into a patchwork of greens and browns, White Houston somewhere down there, living his life like she'd never existed. She pressed her forehead against the window and whispered goodbye to everything she was leaving behind. Portland welcomed her with rain and possibility. She rented a studio apartment, started her new position at the clinic, and tried not to think about White every time she felt the nausea rising. She was 3 months along when she went for her first ultrasound in her new city. The technician was kind, younger than Loretta, chattering about the weather while spreading cold gel across Loretta's stomach. "All right, let's see what we've got here." The technician moved the wand, squinting at the screen. "Oh!" Loretta's heart stopped. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." The technician's smile spread slowly. "But you might want to grab something to hold on to." She turned the screen toward Loretta. 3 distinct shapes pulsed on the monitor. 3 tiny hearts beating in perfect, terrifying synchronization. "Triplets," the technician said. "Congratulations." The room spun. Loretta gripped the examination table, staring at the 3 lives blooming inside her like flowers she hadn't planted but would die protecting. "Are you okay?" The technician touched her shoulder. This must be quite a shock. Shock didn't cover it. Terror didn't cover it. Loretta was alone in a strange city carrying 3 babies, and the man who'd put them there was 3,000 miles away, pretending she'd never existed. "I'm going to be a mother," she heard herself say, "to 3 daughters. You know the genders already? I just know." That night, Loretta sat in her empty apartment and wrote her first letter to her unborn daughters. She didn't know their names yet, didn't know their faces, but she knew with absolute certainty that they would be loved in ways she'd never been. She would give them the stability she'd never had, the belonging she'd never felt, the unwavering certainty that they mattered, and she would do it without White Houston, without his family's approval, without anything except her own fierce determination to be enough. Chapter 3. 3 Heartbeats. The ultrasound photo lived in Loretta's wallet, growing soft at the edges from constant handling, 3 shadowy shapes that looked more like ghosts than babies. 3 futures she'd never planned but would fight for with everything she had. She'd been staring at it during her lunch break when the clinic director knocked on her office door. "Loretta, there's someone asking for you at reception." Her heart stuttered. She'd been in Portland for 2 months, careful not to leave traces. "Who?" She said her name is Nina. Relief flooded through her so fast she felt dizzy. Loretta ran to the lobby and found her best friend leaning against the check-in counter, grinning like she'd won something. Surprise. They collided in a hug that lasted until the receptionist cleared her throat meaningfully. "What are you doing here?" Loretta pulled back, searching Nina's face for bad news. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I used my vacation days." Nina hoisted her backpack. "Thought you might need some help." Over the next 3 days, Nina transformed Loretta's bare apartment into something resembling a home. They painted the second bedroom in soft yellow, assembled 3 cribs that came in boxes with instructions written in 4 languages, and argued about names. "You cannot name one of them Oprah," Nina said, hanging tiny onesies in the closet. "Why not? Oprah Winfrey overcame everything. She's powerful and brilliant, and your daughter will spend her entire life explaining her name." "Good. Let her explain it. Let her know from the start that she comes from strength." Loretta folded a blanket, her hands moving in automatic patterns. "The second one will be Elise. It means God's promise." Nina's expression softened. "That's beautiful." "And Kyla for the third. It means victorious." "You really think they're all girls?" Loretta placed her hand on her swelling stomach. "I know they are." After Nina flew home, the apartment felt cavernous. Loretta worked as many shifts as the clinic would give her, saving every dollar for the hurricane coming her way. She bought 3 memory boxes, simple wooden ones from a craft store, and started filling them with letters. "Dear Oprah," she wrote one night, her back aching from standing all day. "You're the oldest by 2 minutes. The technician showed me on the ultrasound. You're positioned highest, closest to my heart. I don't know if you'll be a leader or a follower, loud or quiet, brave or careful, but I know you'll be first, and I hope that brings you confidence instead of pressure." She sealed it and moved to the next box. "Dear Elise, you're the middle daughter, tucked between your sisters, like you're already protecting both of them. I wonder if you'll be the peacemaker, the bridge between Oprah and Kyla. I hope you know that being in the middle doesn't make you less important. Sometimes the middle is the strongest place to be." The third letter took longer. "Dear Kyla, you're my youngest by 4 minutes, but the technician said you're the most active. You kick constantly, like you're training for something. I think you're going to be the wild one, the fearless one. I hope the world doesn't try to tame that out of you." Loretta worked until her 7th month, when standing for entire shifts became impossible. She'd saved enough for 3 months of rent and necessities. After that, she'd figure something out. She always did. The girls moved inside her like swimmers, their rhythms becoming familiar. Oprah was active in the mornings. Elise responded to music. Loretta would play Nina Simone and feel her middle daughter stretching. Kyla never stopped moving, a constant reminder that she existed and demanded acknowledgement. Loretta talked to them while she folded laundry, while she meal prepped for the week ahead, while she lay awake at 3 in the morning wondering how she'd manage 3 babies alone. "Your father is a coward," she told them one night, her hands moving over her stomach in slow circles. "But that doesn't mean you come from cowardice. You come from me, and I've survived things that would break most people. You've got that in your DNA too." She paused, feeling Kyla kick against her palm. I'm going to tell you about him someday, when you're old enough to understand complicated things. I won't lie and say he was terrible because he wasn't. He was just weak when it mattered most, and maybe that's worse than being terrible, I don't know. Labor started 3 weeks early, a vice grip around her middle that stole her breath. Nina was on a plane within hours, but Loretta labored alone for the first day, walking the hospital halls while nurses monitored 3 heartbeats. Stubborn, the attending doctor said, checking Loretta's progress. All 3 of them want to stay put. They're comfortable, Loretta gasped through a contraction. Can't blame them. But comfort ended when her water broke. The delivery room filled with people. 3 pediatric teams, multiple nurses, the attending doctor barking orders. Loretta had delivered dozens of babies in her career, had coached countless women through labor. Being on this side of it was different. Terrifying. You're doing great, her nurse said, squeezing her hand. Just a little longer. Nina arrived during the final hour, bursting into the delivery room and grabbing Loretta's other hand without asking permission. I'm here, you're doing this. Oprah came first, screaming her fury at being evicted. 5 pounds even, with a full head of dark hair and lungs that could wake the dead. Elise followed 10 minutes later, quieter, her eyes open and searching. 4 pounds 13 ounces, the smallest of the 3. Kyla took another 20 minutes, like she was making a point. 5 pounds 2 ounces, and she came out with her fist near her face like she was ready to fight the world. They placed all 3 on Loretta's chest, their tiny bodies still slick and strange and more beautiful than anything she'd ever seen. Their skin was a shade lighter than hers, a reminder of their father written into their genetics. Hi, Loretta whispered, tears streaming into her hair. Hi, my girls. I'm your mama. I'm going to keep you safe. Nina sobbed openly, taking photos with shaking hands. The first night, Loretta didn't sleep. She stood over their isolettes, watching their chests rise and fall. 3 miracles born from heartbreak, 3 futures she'd built with her own hands. A nurse found her at dawn. You need rest, they're fine. I know, I can't stop looking at them. The nurse's smile was understanding. First time, Mom. First time everything. They went home after 5 days, 3 car seats strapped into Loretta's back seat like the world's most precious cargo. Her apartment had never felt smaller. The girls cried in rotation, an endless symphony of need. Loretta learned to nurse 2 at once while the 3rd waited, learned to change diapers one-handed, learned to survive on 2-hour sleep increments. Nina stayed for 2 weeks before her vacation days ran out. I don't want to leave you. I'll be fine. Loretta jiggled Elise, who'd been fussing for an hour. We'll figure it out. Alone again, Loretta discovered reserves of strength she hadn't known existed. She moved through her days like a machine programmed for survival. Feed, burp, change, sleep, repeat. The girls grew despite her constant fear that she was doing everything wrong. Oprah learned to hold her head up first. Elise discovered her hands, staring at them like they belonged to someone else. Kyla refused to sleep unless she was touching one of her sisters. Time moved in strange ways. Days lasted forever. Months evaporated. Suddenly they were sitting up, then crawling, then pulling themselves upright on furniture, their faces bright with achievement. Loretta returned to the clinic part-time. Found a daycare run by a woman named Mrs. Chen, who charged half of what Loretta earned, but loved the girls like they were her own grandchildren. The girls' first word was Mama. All 3 of them saying it within days of each other. Loretta cried each time. Overwhelmed by the weight of that title, she got promoted to clinic coordinator. The raise wasn't huge, but it meant breathing room. She moved them to a 2-bedroom apartment with a small backyard. The girls learned to walk, stumbling after each other like ducklings. Oprah led, Kyla followed fearlessly, and Elise brought up the rear, careful and deliberate. They developed personalities distinct as fingerprints. Oprah was serious, always watching, always thinking. She'd sit for an hour with a picture book, studying each page like it held secrets. Elise collected things, rocks from the playground, leaves from the backyard, buttons that fell off coats. She lined them up in careful rows. Her own private museum. Kyla climbed everything, fell constantly, and never cried unless her sisters were hurt. Their 4th birthday party happened at the neighborhood park. Just Loretta, the girls, Mrs. Chen and Nina, who'd flown in for the occasion. They had cupcakes with purple frosting, the girls' favorite color, and sang off-key. Another parent approached while Loretta was cleaning up. "Your girls are beautiful. Where's their father?" Loretta had perfected this answer. "It's just us, and we're enough." But sometimes, late at night, she'd watch them sleep in their shared room and wonder what White would think if he could see them, if he'd regret his choice. If he ever thought about the woman he'd discarded in a hotel parking lot. She'd built a life from nothing, made a home from heartbreak, given her daughters everything that mattered. But the question lingered like smoke. Would it always be enough? Chapter 4. 3 Daughters. Loretta woke to Kyla's foot in her face and Oprah's elbow digging into her ribs. Elise had somehow migrated to the bottom of the bed, curled against Loretta's shins like a parenthesis. They'd started in their own beds. They always did. But nightmares and thunderstorms and the simple need for proximity drew them into Loretta's queen-sized bed like magnets. She didn't fight it anymore. Morning light filtered through curtains the girls had finger-painted with handprints. Purple and yellow and orange chaos that made Loretta's landlord wince, but that she couldn't bear to replace. "Mama!" Oprah's voice came out scratchy. "Is it pancake day?" "Every day is pancake day if you want it to be." Kyla launched herself upright, nearly kicking Elise in the process. "I want chocolate chips in mine." "We don't have chocolate chips," Loretta said, already calculating the morning schedule. Clinic at 8, which meant out the door by 7, which meant breakfast needed to happen now. "Can we get some?" Kyla's eyes, her father's eyes, though Loretta tried not to notice, pleaded with the intensity only 4-year-olds could muster. "Maybe this weekend." Elise finally stirred, clutching the smooth rock she'd found yesterday and refused to be separated from. "Mama, can I bring River Rock to daycare?" River Rock? That's his name. Elise held up the stone reverently. "He told me." Oprah rolled her eyes with devastating precision. "Rocks don't talk, Elise. He talks to me." "That's enough." Loretta extracted herself from the tangle of limbs. Everyone brushed teeth. "We're running late." The morning exploded into controlled chaos. Oprah dressed herself with meticulous care, choosing an outfit that matched down to her socks. Kyla put her shirt on backward and refused to change it. Elise spent 10 minutes deciding which pocket would be safest for River Rock. Breakfast was cereal eaten standing up, while Loretta braided 3 heads of hair into identical styles. Her fingers knew the pattern by heart now: divide, cross, secure. Each braid was a small act of love, repeated daily until it became prayer. "Mrs. Chen said we're learning about families today," Oprah announced, milk dribbling down her chin. Loretta's hands stuttered. "That's nice. She said everyone has a mama and a daddy." Oprah's eyes, too observant, always seeing too much, fixed on Loretta's face. "We only have you." The kitchen went quiet. Even Kyla stopped mid-chew. Loretta crouched to Oprah's level. "Some families have mamas and daddies, some have 2 mamas, some have 2 daddies, some have grandparents or aunts or uncles raising them. Our family is me and you 3, that's just as real as any other kind." "But we had a daddy once, right?" Kyla asked. "You needed a daddy to make us." "Yes," Loretta chose her words with surgical precision. "You had a father, but he's not part of our family now." "Why not?" Elise's voice was small. "Because grown-ups make complicated choices sometimes, and his choice was to not be here." "Did we do something wrong?" Oprah's question landed like a punch. "No. No, baby. You did nothing wrong. None of you did." Loretta pulled all 3 into a hug, fierce and tight. "He made a choice before he even met you. That's on him, not you. You're perfect exactly as you are." They clung to her for a moment before Kyla wriggled free. "Can we get a dog instead?" The whiplash of 4-year-old logic made Loretta laugh despite the ache in her chest. No, dog, we barely have room for the 4 of us. The drive to daycare was filled with backseat negotiations about whose turn it was to sit by the window tomorrow. Loretta half listened, her mind still on Oprah's question. They'd ask more as they got older. The questions would get harder. Someday she'd have to tell them about White Houston, about his family, about the choice that led to their existence. She'd have to explain rejection and cowardice and all the complicated truths she'd hoped to shield them from for a few more years. Mrs. Chen met them at the door, her face creasing into a smile. My favorite girls. River Rock is coming to school, Elise announced, producing the stone from her pocket. How wonderful. He can stay in your cubby to keep your things safe. Loretta handed over their lunchboxes, 3 identical purple containers, because buying anything else resulted in arguments. Oprah mentioned you're talking about families today. Mrs. Chen's expression shifted, understanding flowing between 2 women who'd both navigated difficult waters. We talk about all kinds of families, how they're different and how they're the same. Thank you. The girls vanished into the daycare with barely a backward glance, already absorbed in their world of blocks and books and imagination. Loretta stood in the parking lot longer than necessary, watching through the window as they played. Work provided welcome distraction. The clinic served patients who couldn't afford traditional doctors, immigrants, people without insurance, mothers stretching paychecks until they screamed. Loretta understood them in ways her medical training hadn't taught her. During lunch, Nina called. How are my goddaughters? Currently learning that their family is different from other families. Shit, how'd that go? About as well as expected. Oprah asked why he's not here. Kyla wants a dog instead. Elise renamed a rock. Nina's laugh was warm. Sounds about right. You know they're going to keep asking. I know. Have you thought about what you'll tell them when they're older? Loretta stared at her half-eaten sandwich. The truth, I guess. That their father was someone I loved, who didn't love me enough, that he came from a family who thought I wasn't good enough, that he chose them over me and never knew you 3 existed. You don't owe him protection from the truth. I'm not protecting him, I'm protecting them. There's a difference. After work, Loretta picked up the girls and took them to the park. Spring had turned Portland green, the air heavy with rain that hadn't fallen yet. The girls scattered to their preferred activities, Oprah to the swings, Elise to a dirt patch where she could dig for treasures, Kyla to the climbing structure that made Loretta's heart stop every time another mother settled on the bench beside her. Yours? The 3 tornadoes, yes? Triplets? Wow, I can barely handle one. You just learn to move faster. They watched their children in comfortable silence for a moment before the woman asked, Do you ever get a break? I mean, is their dad involved or… Loretta had heard this question in various forms for 4 years. It's just us. And we're enough. The woman's face shifted with pity. Loretta didn't want, that must be so hard. It's our life. Hard isn't the word I'd use. But later, loading 3 exhausted girls into car seats, Loretta felt the weight of it. 4 years of being everything, mother, father, provider, comforter, teacher, playmate. 4 years without backup, without someone to tap in when exhaustion threatened to drown her. She'd chosen this, or rather, White's choice had forced hers. But she'd made peace with it, built something strong from broken pieces. Dinner was chicken nuggets and broccoli, a battle she waged nightly. Kyla tried to feed her broccoli to Oprah when she thought Loretta wasn't looking. Nice try. Eat your vegetables. They're trees, Kyla protested. Delicious trees that make you strong. Bath time turned the bathroom into a flood zone. 3 girls in one tub meant water sloshing over the sides, soap in eyes, and arguments about whose turn it was to use the mermaid toy Loretta refereed while scrubbing behind ears and between toes, finding sand that shouldn't exist this far from the beach. Story time was the sacred hour. All 3 girls piled into Loretta's bed, smelling like lavender soap and innocence. She read from their current favorite, a book about 3 sisters who went on adventures together. That's like us, Elise whispered. Exactly like you. Oprah's finger traced the illustrations. But they have a mama and a papa in the pictures. Loretta's throat tightened. Some stories have that. Our story is different, but just as good. Is our daddy mean? Kyla asked suddenly. Is that why he's not here? No, baby, he's not mean. He's just... Loretta struggled for words that would make sense to 4-year-olds. He made a choice that meant he couldn't be your daddy, not because of you, because of him. Do you think he's sorry? Oprah's question was too mature, too understanding. Loretta thought about White Houston in that hotel parking lot, thought about the life he'd chosen over her, over them. I don't know. Maybe. But sorry doesn't change anything. She finished the story, turned off the light, and sang the lullaby that had become their ritual one by one. The girls drifted off. Loretta stayed, watching them sleep, these 3 miracles born from her greatest heartbreak. Their faces were peaceful, unmarked by the complicated truth of their origins. They didn't know about trust funds they'd never access, about grandparents who'd rejected them before they existed, about a father who'd called their mother not good enough. They only knew Loretta's love, which she'd made absolute and endless to fill every gap. She kissed each forehead, Oprah, Elise, Kyla, and whispered what she told them every night. You are wanted, you are loved, you are exactly who you're supposed to be. In the living room, she opened her laptop to the memory boxes she'd started when they were born. She added new letters, documenting this day, this moment, these questions that would only grow more complex. I'm scared, she typed. Not of you asking about him, but of the day I'll have to tell you that you come from a man who ran, that your existence, beautiful, miraculous you, wasn't enough to make him stay. How do I explain that his cowardice has nothing to do with your worth? She saved the letters and closed the laptop. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new questions, new moments of wondering if she was enough for 3 girls who deserved everything. But tonight, they were safe, fed, loved, and in the end, maybe that was all that mattered. Chapter 5. The sighting White Houston had perfected the art of pretending the past didn't exist. 4 years of practice had made him almost believe it. Almost. The pharmaceutical conference in Portland should have been routine. Present at a panel about distribution strategies, network with West Coast partners, fly home. Simple, forgettable. He stood in the hotel bathroom, adjusting his tie and avoiding his own reflection. The mirror showed grey threading through his hair now, lines carved around his mouth from smiling at people he didn't like. He looked successful, looked exactly like the man his father had demanded he become. He looked hollow. Carolyn was waiting downstairs, probably checking her phone and radiating the bored elegance that made his mother worship her. Their engagement had been announced last month. Eleanor's machinations finally complete. Carolyn came from the right family, said the right things, looked perfect in photographs. She bored him to tears. But that was fine. Passion led to complications. He'd learned that lesson thoroughly. The conference sessions blurred together. Men in expensive suits discussing margins and markets. White's mind wandered. It wandered often lately to places he'd forbidden himself to visit. During the lunch break, he walked. Portland was grey and green, the rain holding off long enough to make the streets navigable. He needed air, needed movement, needed to escape the hotel's recycled atmosphere. The Children's Museum appeared around a corner, its colourful banners bright against overcast sky. Families crowded the entrance, mothers and fathers and children dragging them toward whatever magic waited inside. White was about to turn away when he saw her. Loretta. She stood on the museum steps, surrounded by 3 little girls in matching purple backpacks. Her hair was different, longer, pulled back in a way that emphasized the angles of her face. She wore jeans and a yellow jacket that made her glow. She looked happy, radiant, more alive than he'd ever seen her. White's feet rooted to the sidewalk. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what he was seeing. The girls, 3 of them, identical heights, identical backpacks, identical smiles aimed up at Loretta. Triplets. Loretta was laughing at something one of them said. her whole face transformed by joy. She crouched down, that movement he remembered, the way she made herself level with people instead of towering over them, and fixed one girl's shoe. The world tilted. Math crashed through White's paralysis. 4 years. These girls were maybe 4 years old. The timing aligned with when they'd, his lungs forgot how to work. One girl tugged Loretta's hand, pointing at something inside the museum. Loretta nodded, said something that made all 3 girls laugh. They were beautiful. Their skin was lighter than Loretta's, their hair a mix of textures. They looked like they could be his. White's hand found a streetlight pole, gripping it to stay upright. This wasn't possible. Loretta would have told him, would have called, emailed, shown up demanding. The image of his mother having security escort Loretta from the building slammed into his consciousness. Oh, God. Loretta herded the girls toward the museum entrance. One of them, the smallest, stopped to examine a rock on the ground with intense concentration. Another climbed the stairs like they were a mountain to be conquered. The third walked with careful precision, staying close to Loretta. Different personalities, distinct humans, his daughters. He almost called out, almost ran across the street, pushed through the crowd, demanded answers. But Loretta's expression stopped him. She looked content, complete, like she'd built a life that didn't need him. They disappeared into the museum. White stood on the sidewalk for 20 minutes, staring at the door they'd vanished through. People flowed around him like water around a stone. The rain finally started, light drops that turned into sheets, but he barely noticed. He had children, 3 of them. Loretta had been pregnant when he'd told her she wasn't good enough. When his mother had, his phone buzzed. Carolyn asking where he was. The afternoon session starting in 10 minutes. White walked back to the hotel on autopilot. Sat through presentations without hearing a word. Carolyn's hand rested on his arm during dinner, her touch meaningless as air. "You're quiet tonight," she observed, her voice carrying the mild interest of someone commenting on weather. "Tired. The Portland dreariness getting to you?" She sipped her wine with careful precision. "I told Mother we should have scheduled this for somewhere more civilized." White looked at his fiancée, this woman his family had selected like furniture, and felt nothing. No anger, no affection, not even irritation. Just vast emptiness where emotion should have lived. "I need to make a call," he said, standing abruptly. His hotel room felt like a cage. He paced, pulled out his laptop, searched. Loretta King, Portland. Nothing. Loretta Houston. His hands shook, typing it. The search returned hits. A clinic coordinator at a community health center. No social media profiles, no photographs. But her name appeared in a local article about healthcare access, quoted as saying, "Everyone deserves quality care, regardless of ability to pay." Still fighting for people, still being exactly who she'd always been. He found the clinic's address closed now, but he could go tomorrow, after the conference. He could, what? Demand answers? Beg forgiveness? Explain that his family's toxicity had poisoned the best thing in his life? White opened his phone, scrolled to his contacts. He'd never deleted Loretta's number, had looked at it countless times over 4 years, thumb hovering over the call button before cowardice won. He dialed. "The number you are trying to reach has been disconnected." Of course. Why would she keep the same number? Why would she make this easy? He called a private investigator instead, used the name his father employed for delicate matters. "I need everything you can find on Loretta King, Portland, Oregon. Works at a community health clinic. Has 3 children, approximately 4 years old." "How fast do you need this?" "Tomorrow. I need it by tomorrow morning." The investigator's pause suggested this would cost extra. "Consider it done." White couldn't sleep. He stood at his hotel window, watching Portland's lights blur through rain, and thought about 3 girls with purple backpacks, his daughters, growing up without him, without his name, his resources, his what? His poisonous family, his ability to bow to pressure, his track record of choosing comfort over courage. Maybe they were better off. But the thought of them existing in the world, not knowing him, not knowing they had a father what? Who'd thrown their mother away like she was disposable. Dawn came slowly. White was already dressed when his phone rang. "I have your information," the investigator said. "Sending it now." The file appeared in White's email. He opened it with hands that wouldn't steady. Loretta King, 31. Clinic coordinator at Southeast Portland Community Health Center. Salary that made White's throat close, barely above poverty line. Rented a 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood his family would never visit. Mother to triplets, Oprah Houston King, Elise Houston King, Kyla Houston King. They had his name, hyphenated with Loretta's, but his name was there. She'd given them that connection even after he'd birth certificates attached, all 3 born on the same day. The father's name was blank, but the middle name Houston appeared on each line like an accusation. He zoomed in on the hospital photograph included in the file, 3 tiny faces, eyes squeezed shut, wrapped in blankets. His daughters. White's chest cracked open. He'd missed everything. First smiles, first words, first steps. 4 years of existence he'd been absent from because he'd chosen his family's approval over Loretta's worth. He called Carolyn. "The engagement is off." "What?" "I can't marry you, I'm sorry, this was a mistake." "White, what are you—" He hung up, called his mother next. "This better be important," Eleanor said. "It's barely 7. Did you know?" "Did I know what?" "That Loretta was pregnant when she came to the office 4 years ago. Did you know?" Silence stretched. "Then, I suspected." White's vision went red. "You suspected and you had her removed anyway." "She was unsuitable, a child wouldn't have changed that fact." "Children, 3 of them. I have 3 daughters, Mother, and you kept that from me." "White, calm down. If she genuinely wanted you involved, she would have—" "She tried. She came to our building and you had security throw her out." "You were already moving forward with Carolyn. The board had approved your transition. Everything was finally on track. You decided my life for me." White's voice came out cold as winter. "You took that choice away. I was protecting you from a mistake. No, you were protecting yourself from embarrassment, and I let you. That's on me." He ended the call before Eleanor could respond. The conference didn't matter anymore. Carolyn didn't matter. His mother's fury didn't matter. 3 girls in purple backpacks mattered, and the woman who'd carried them, birthed them, raised them alone. White checked out of his hotel, cancelled his flights. He wasn't leaving Portland until he fixed this. If it could be fixed. If Loretta would even let him try. He drove to the clinic, waited in the parking lot like a stalker until he saw her arrive. She moved with purpose, her yellow jacket bright in the grey morning. She didn't see him. Why would she? He was a ghost from her past, someone she'd erased from her life. White watched her disappear into the building and realized he had no idea what to say. No words big enough to bridge 4 years of absence. No explanation that wouldn't sound like the excuse it was. But he had to try. He'd thrown her away once, chosen wrong, let his family's poison seep into his spine until he couldn't stand upright. Maybe it was too late. Maybe she'd slam every door in his face. Maybe his daughters would never know his name beyond the one on their birth certificates. But he had to try. White waited until evening, until the clinic's lights started going dark, until Loretta emerged, exhausted in the way that came from holding everything together alone. He got out of his car, crossed the parking lot. Each step felt like walking toward judgment. She saw him when he was 10 feet away. Her entire body went rigid. "Hello, Loretta." Chapter 6. The investigation. Loretta's world telescoped down to White Houston's face. 4 years collapsed into nothing. He looked older, lines carved deep around his mouth, grey scattered through his hair like ash. But his eyes were the same. The eyes she'd once trusted, once loved, once believed would be the eyes her children inherited. They had inherited them. All 3 girls. "What are you doing here, White?" Her voice came out steady. She was proud of that. Proud that he couldn't see her heart trying to escape her chest. He stood between her and her car, his expensive suit out of place in the clinic parking lot. "I saw you. Yesterday. With the girls." Loretta's blood turned to ice. "What girls?" "Don't. Please don't." His voice cracked. "I saw them. 3 of them. The right age. I'm not stupid, Loretta. No, just a coward." She moved to step around him. He shifted, blocking her path without touching her. "I need to know, are they mine?" The audacity of it, of him showing up after 4 years and demanding answers, ignited something in Loretta's chest. "Mine. They're not property, White. They're people." "That's not what I meant." "No?" She laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut. "Then what did you mean? Because from where I'm standing, you gave up any right to ask questions the day you told me I wasn't good enough." He flinched. Good. She wanted him to hurt. "You were pregnant." It wasn't a question. When you threw me away?" "Yes. 3 weeks along. Didn't know it yet, though. Lucky for you, right? No messy complications." White's face went grey. "I didn't know." "You didn't want to know. There's a difference." Loretta's hands shook. She shoved them in her pockets. "I tried to tell you. Came to your office building. Your mother had security escort me out. She told me this morning after I—" He stopped, started again. "I'm sorry. Sorry." Loretta tasted the word, found it wanting. "You're sorry. 4 years later, you're sorry. That fixes everything, doesn't it?" "No, I know it doesn't. But Loretta, I have 3 daughters and I didn't." "You have nothing." Her voice went quiet, deadly. "You see 3 little girls. That's all you get to see. I want to meet them, be part of their lives. I want. She stepped closer, making him retreat. "That's all I'm hearing, White. What you want. 4 years ago you wanted your family's approval more than you wanted me. Now you want something different. But what about what I want? What they need? Tell me what you need." Loretta looked at this man who'd once made her believe in futures that didn't exist, who'd touched her like she was precious before deciding she was disposable. Who stood here now, looking at her with eyes that expected forgiveness she didn't owe. "I need you to leave." "Loretta." "No." She pulled her keys from her pocket, gripped them tight. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to show up and demand access to my life, to their lives. You made your choice." "I was wrong." "Yes, you were, and that's something you're going to have to live with." She moved past him, yanked her car door open. "Please." White's voice broke. "Just tell me their names." Loretta paused, her back to him. Every instinct screamed to get in the car, drive away, protect what she'd built from this man who'd once demolished her, but they were his daughters too. Biology didn't care about his choices or her pain. Oprah, Elise, Kyla. She heard his sharp intake of breath. "They're beautiful," he whispered. "I saw them yesterday and they're perfect." "I know they are. I'm the one who's been raising them." Loretta climbed into her car. "You want something from me? You want a chance? I'll think about it. But White, thinking doesn't mean agreeing." She drove away before he could respond, her hands strangling the steering wheel. In the rearview mirror, he stood alone in the parking lot, looking lost in a way that shouldn't satisfy her, but did. Her apartment felt too small when she walked in. Mrs. Chen had stayed late, was reading to the girls when Loretta burst through the door. "Mama!" Kyla launched herself across the room. Loretta caught her, buried her face in her daughter's hair and fought not to cry. Oprah and Elise joined the hug, their small bodies pressing close like they sensed something was wrong. "Everything okay?" Mrs. Chen asked quietly. "Fine, just a long day." Loretta forced a smile. "Thank you for staying." After Mrs. Chen left, Loretta went through the evening routine on autopilot: dinner, bath, stories. But her mind was 3,000 miles away, in a hotel parking lot where a coward had called her not good enough. "You're sad, Mama," Oprah observed, her serious eyes seeing too much as always. "I'm tired, baby, that's all." "Is it because we don't have a daddy?" Elise asked, clutching River Rock like a talisman. Loretta's throat closed. "No, sweetheart, you have everything you need. We have each other." But Kyla's small hand touched Loretta's cheek. You're crying. Happy tears. Loretta lied. Sometimes mamas cry because they love their babies so much it feels too big to hold inside. It wasn't entirely a lie. She did love them too much, loved them enough that White Houston showing up terrified her. Because what if they wanted him? What if her love wasn't enough once they knew they could have a father? After the girls finally slept, Loretta sat in her dark living room and let herself break. 4 years she'd been strong. 4 years of holding everything together, but seeing White again cracked something open, not love, that had died in a parking lot, but the wound he'd left had never healed properly, just scabbed over, waiting for him to reappear and tear it open. Her phone rang at midnight, an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered, "It's White, please don't hang up." Loretta should have blocked the number, thrown the phone across the room, protected herself from whatever he was about to say. "I hired an investigator," he said quietly. "I know that makes me an asshole, but I needed to know. I saw the birth certificates, saw their names, saw that you gave them my name even though I—" "Don't!" Loretta's voice was steel. "Don't make yourself the victim here." "I'm not. I'm the villain, I know that." He breathed shakily. "But they're still my daughters, and I missed everything. First steps, first words, first time Oprah threw up for 6 hours straight and I thought I'd lose her. First time Elise wouldn't stop crying for 3 days and I didn't sleep because I was terrified something was wrong. First time Kyla fell off the playground and broke her arm, and I had to hold her down while they set it. You missed all of it, White. The terror and the exhaustion and the moments I didn't think I'd survive." Silence. Then, "I'm sorry." "Stop saying that sorry doesn't change anything." "Then what will? What do I have to do?" Loretta closed her eyes. She'd spent 4 years not thinking about this moment, building a life where White Houston didn't exist, except as a biological fact her daughters would learn when they were old enough. But he did exist, was existing right now in Portland, demanding recognition. "If you want to meet them," she heard herself say, "we do this my way, my rules. You don't get to swoop in and disrupt everything I've built. Anything, whatever you want. I want you to understand that you're not their father, not yet, maybe not ever. You're a stranger who shares their DNA." He made a sound like she'd punched him. "You meet them when I decide, where I decide, no gifts, no promises, no telling them who you are until I'm sure you're staying." "I'm staying. You said that once before, about us, about how you'd handle your family. We both know how that turned out." The accusation hung between them like smoke. "I broke my engagement," White said suddenly. "Tonight. Called off the wedding. Want a medal? I told my mother she has no say in my life anymore, cut my father out of decisions. I'm taking a leave from the company." "Good for you. That doesn't earn you anything with me." "I know. But I need you to know I'm not that person anymore, the one who chose wrong. Who let them—" "People don't change that fast, White, and I'm not interested in your redemption arc. I care about my daughters. If you want to be part of their lives, you prove it, day after day, not with grand gestures, with showing up." "I will. We'll see." Loretta's exhaustion felt like drowning. "I'll call you when I'm ready. Until then, stay away from the clinic, stay away from us." "Loretta, those are my terms. Take them or leave them." A pause. Then, "I'll take them." She hung up before he could say anything else. In her bedroom, the girls slept in her bed again, tangled together like vines. Loretta watched their faces, so peaceful, so unaware that their world was about to shift. She'd protected them from his absence. Now she had to protect them from his presence, and she had no idea if she was strong enough to do both. Chapter 7. The approach. White Houston had always been good at waiting rooms, hospital lobbies, airports, his father's office, places where time moved differently, where patience was currency. But waiting for Loretta's call felt different. Every hour stretched into days. He'd rented an apartment, Not a hotel. That felt temporary. Felt like hedging his bets. An actual apartment in Portland with a lease and furniture he'd ordered online. His mother's calls went to voicemail. His father's threats of disinheritance felt distant as moon rock. None of it mattered. He had 3 daughters who didn't know he existed. That was the only fact that held weight anymore. 5 days passed. White walked Portland's streets, learning the city where his children were growing up. He passed playgrounds and schools, wondered which ones the girls might attend. Every child's laugh made him turn around, hoping for purple backpacks and Loretta's yellow jacket. On the 6th day, his phone rang. Unknown number, Heathman Hotel, tomorrow, 10 in the morning, just the lobby. Don't get excited. Loretta, those are my terms. Accept them or I'm hanging up. I accept. She disconnected without another word. White barely slept. He arrived at the hotel at 8, sat in the lobby like a man waiting for sentencing, wore jeans instead of a suit, hoping casual would make him seem less threatening. Bought coffee he couldn't drink. At 9:58, the lobby doors opened. Loretta walked in alone. White's hope deflated so fast he felt lightheaded. She wore the same yellow jacket, her hair pulled back, her expression carved from granite. "They're not coming," he said, trying to keep disappointment from his voice. "No, we're going to talk first, you and me." She didn't sit, forcing him to stand. "I've been thinking about what letting you into their lives means. I don't care what you want." Her voice was quiet steel. "I care what's best for them, and I'm still not sure you are." White's throat closed. "Tell me how to convince you." "You can't, not with words." Loretta crossed her arms. "If I let you meet them, here are the rules. You follow all of them, or you never see them again." "Okay. You're not their father. Not to them you're Mr. White, a friend of mine, that's all." The designation stung, but he nodded. "No gifts to buy their affection, no promises about the future, no mentioning your family. They don't need to know about people who would reject them." "My family would never—" Loretta's laugh was acid. "Your mother had me removed from a building because I wasn't good enough. You think she'll suddenly embrace 3 black grandchildren? Don't insult my intelligence." White had no argument. She was right. "You show up when I say leave. When I say. If they're uncomfortable, we're done. If they don't want to see you again, we're done. If you disappoint them even once, we're done." "I understand. Do you?" Loretta stepped closer. "Because this isn't about you, White. It's not about your guilt or your regrets or your sudden urge to be a father. It's about them. 3 little girls who've never had a dad, who've learned to be okay with that. You coming into their lives could hurt them, and I will set myself on fire before I let you hurt my daughters. Our daughters. Biologically, sure, but in every way that matters, they're mine. You get that, right? You don't just get to claim them because you share DNA." White wanted to argue, wanted to explain that he'd had no choice, no knowledge, that he would have. But he had known. Maybe not about the pregnancy, but he'd known Loretta was real, was worthy, was everything his family wasn't, and he'd chosen wrong anyway. "I get it," he said finally. "I have to earn this." "You'll never earn it completely. Best you can hope for is that they decide you're worth having around." Loretta pulled out her phone, checked the time. "They're at the Children's Museum right now, with my friend Nina. If you want to meet them, we go there. We pretend to run into each other. You say hello, make small talk for 10 minutes, and then you leave." "That's it?" "That's more than you deserve." She walked out. White followed, his heart hammering against his ribs. The drive took 15 minutes. Loretta didn't speak, just stared out the window like he didn't exist. White gripped the steering wheel and tried to remember how to breathe. The Children's Museum bustled with families. White followed Loretta through the entrance, past exhibits where kids climbed and built and explored. His palms were sweating. "There," Loretta pointed. 3 girls in identical purple dresses, not backpacks this time, clustered around a water table. They were soaking wet, laughing, splashing each other with complete disregard for anyone else. And they were his. White's legs forgot how to function. The girl on the left, taller by an inch, her hair in careful braids, concentrated on a water wheel with serious intensity. The middle one crouched down, peering under the table at something invisible to everyone else. The third climbed onto the table's edge, fearless, reaching for a toy boat another child was holding. "Kyla, down!" Loretta called. The climber looked up, grinned, and jumped down in a way that made White's heart stop. They noticed Loretta and ran over, 3 bodies moving in chaotic synchronization. "Mama, I found a shell under the table, but it's plastic. Did you see me make the water go up? That boy wouldn't share the boat, so I climbed to get it." Their voices overlapped, each demanding attention. Loretta crouched, somehow hearing all 3 at once. "Elise, that's a nice discovery. Oprah, great job problem-solving. Kyla, we don't climb on tables or take toys from other kids." Nina appeared, looking frazzled. "I swear I was watching them for 5 seconds. She stopped, seeing White. Her expression went nuclear. "What is he doing here?" "It's okay." Loretta's hand touched Nina's arm in warning. "This is White. He's an old friend." Nina's glare could have stripped paint, but she stepped back. White crouched down, bringing himself to the girl's level. Up close, they were devastating. Oprah's eyes, his eyes, watched him with cautious intelligence. Elise clutched something in her fist, holding it like treasure. Kyla stared at him with zero fear, just pure curiosity. "Hi," he managed. His voice cracked. "I'm White." "That's a funny name," Kyla announced. "Are you really White? You look pink." "Kyla," Loretta warned. "What? He does." White laughed, despite the tears threatening. "You're right, I do look kind of pink." "Why are you crying?" Oprah's question was direct, her expression too understanding for someone so small. "Because you're beautiful." All 3 girls looked at their mother for interpretation. "Mr. White is visiting Portland," Loretta explained smoothly. "We used to know each other. He's just saying hello." "Do you want to play with us?" Elise's voice was soft, shy. She opened her fist to reveal a plastic shell. "I found this." White took it with shaking hands. "This is amazing. Thank you. You can keep it if you want." Giving him her treasure. This child who didn't know him, offering what she'd found with the generosity of someone who'd been taught to share. They played for 10 minutes. White lifted Kyla to reach the toy boat legally, helped Oprah figure out the water wheel's mechanism, listened to Elise explain her rock collection in detail. Every second felt both infinite and gone too fast. "All right, girls, time to go," Loretta announced. "But Mama, now please." They grumbled but obeyed, hugging Nina and starting toward the exit. Oprah paused, looking back at White. "Are you coming to play again?" White looked at Loretta. She gave the tiniest nod. "I hope so," he said, "if that's okay with your mom." "It's okay," Kyla declared. "You're nice, and you don't treat us like babies." They left in a whirlwind of purple and chattering voices. Nina lingered, her expression promising violence. "You hurt them," she said quietly, "and I will end you. I don't care about your money or your family or whatever excuse you're selling yourself. Those girls are everything. You got that?" "I got it." "Good." She turned to leave, then looked back. "For what it's worth, you missed a lot more than you can imagine. Don't waste what she's giving you now." White stood alone in the Children's Museum, surrounded by other people's families. His daughters' voices echoed in his head. Oprah's watchfulness, Elise's shy generosity, Kyla's fearlessness. He'd helped create them and knew nothing about them, but he would. If Loretta gave him the chance, he'd learn every detail, every preference, every dream. He'd earn his way back into the life he'd thrown away. His phone buzzed. "Loretta. Same time next week, the zoo. Don't be late." White saved Elise's plastic shell in his pocket like a relic, like proof that for 10 minutes his daughters had let him into their world, and maybe, if he proved himself worthy, they'd let him stay. Chapter 8. Term's 3 months of Saturdays. White showed up for every single one. The zoo became routine, then the puppet theater, then the library for story time. He learned that Oprah loved books about space, that Elise collected interesting leaves along with her rocks, that Kyla feared absolutely nothing except the dark. He learned to braid hair. Badly, but he tried. Learned which ice cream flavors each girl preferred. Learned that "I'm tired" from Oprah meant she needed quiet, that Elise's silence meant she was processing, that Kyla's hyperactivity meant she was anxious about something. Loretta watched everything, hawk-eyed and unforgiving. She never left them alone with him, never softened her expression when he arrived, never gave him anything beyond strict instructions and cold courtesy. White didn't push, couldn't afford to. He'd rented an apartment in Portland permanently now, taken a formal leave from Houston Pharmaceuticals. His father's threats of cutting him off had materialized. His trust fund was frozen, his position eliminated. Bethany called occasionally, her voice dripping with schadenfreude about his fall from grace. None of it mattered. He got a consulting position with a smaller pharmaceutical firm. The pay was a fraction of what he'd made, but it was honest work that didn't require his family's approval. He learned to budget, learned what Loretta had always known, that money was finite, choices were hard, survival required sacrifice. His apartment was spare. He'd bought 3 stuffed animals, a bear, a rabbit and an owl, and lined them up on his couch, even though the girls had never visited, even though they might never visit. Hope was a stupid thing, but he couldn't kill it. On the 13th Saturday, something shifted. They were at OMSI, the Science Museum, watching an electricity demonstration. Kyla sat on White's shoulders because she couldn't see over the crowd. Elise held his hand without Loretta suggesting it. Oprah stood close, asking him questions about conductivity with her serious face. Why doesn't the electricity hurt him? She pointed at the demonstrator touching a plasma globe. White explained about circuits and pathways. Oprah absorbed every word, then asked 3 follow-up questions that made him scramble for answers. "You're smart," she said finally. It sounded like an assessment rather than a compliment. "Your mom's smarter." Oprah's expression shifted. Surprise, maybe approval. "I know. Mama knows everything." After the demonstration, they ate lunch in the museum cafe. Kyla spilled juice all over White's shirt. He laughed instead of flinching, mopped it up with napkins, while she apologized in a voice that said she wasn't actually sorry. "It's just a shirt," he assured her. "Mama says you used to wear really expensive clothes." White's eyes cut to Loretta. She looked away, but her mouth twitched. "I did. They weren't as comfortable as this one." "Because you were rich?" "Kyla," Loretta warned. "What? You said he was rich?" "I said his family was wealthy. There's a difference." Oprah studied White with those 2 observant eyes. "Are you still rich?" "No, and I like it better this way." "Why?" How did he explain to a 4-year-old that wealth without purpose felt like drowning? That his family's money had been a leash disguised as luxury? "Because now I spend time doing things that matter, like this." Elise offered him half her sandwich. "You can have some of mine." The gesture broke something in White's chest. This child sharing her food because she'd noticed he hadn't ordered anything, because she'd been taught to take care of people. "Thank you, sweetheart, but I'm okay." "Are you sure? You look hungry." He was. Paycheck didn't come until next week, and he'd been stretching groceries, but these girls didn't need to know that. "I'm sure." But Loretta's eyes saw everything, always did. After the museum, she asked White to wait while Nina took the girls to the car. "You're broke," she said, not a question. "I'm fine." "White, I'm managing." He met her gaze. "I made choices, living with the consequences. The girls don't need to see you struggling." "I'm not struggling, I'm just adjusting." Loretta's expression was inscrutable. "They're asking about you, when they're going to see you again, what you're doing when you're not with us." White's heart kicked. "Is that good or bad?" "I don't know yet." She pulled her keys from her pocket. "But it means we need to talk, actually talk, about what this is, what it could be." "When?" Tonight, after they're asleep, come to my apartment." She gave him the address and walked away before he could respond. White stood in the museum parking lot, processing what had just happened. An invitation to her home, alone. Either she was ready to negotiate terms, or she was ready to end this. He drove to his apartment and stared at 3 stuffed animals that had never been held, changed his shirt, rehearsed what to say, and discarded every word. At 8 p.m., he knocked on Loretta's door. She answered in sweatpants and a t-shirt, her hair down for the first time since he'd been back in her life. Without makeup, she looked younger. Tired. "They're asleep," she said, leading him inside. The apartment was small but warm, evidence of the girls everywhere, artwork on the walls, toys in corners, 3 backpacks hanging by the door in purple, purple, purple. "Coffee?" Loretta asked. "Please." They sat at her kitchen table. The silence was different than before, not hostile, just heavy with everything unsaid. "They like you," Loretta finally said. "That terrifies me." "Why?" "Because what happens when you leave? When you decide this is too hard or too boring, or your family makes you an offer you can't refuse." "I'm not leaving." "You don't know that people leave, White. It's what they do." He heard foster care in those words, heard abandonment and broken promises. "I'm not those people." "You were 4 years ago. You were exactly those people." Loretta's hands wrapped around her coffee mug. "You left me in a parking lot because I wasn't good enough. What makes you think you won't leave them?" "Because I've seen what I threw away. Because I know what I am without you, without them. Empty." White leaned forward. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to let me prove I've changed." "How?" "However long it takes. Whatever you need." Loretta studied him. "I have terms, real ones. If you want to be part of their lives, truly part of them, you need to hear this. I'm listening. You can continue seeing them same schedule for now, but no more pretending you're just Mr. White, Mama's friend. They're old enough to understand more. Not everything, but more." White's pulse accelerated. "I'm going to tell them you're their father, but you don't get that title until you've earned it. To them, you're White. That's it. You earn Daddy through showing up, through being there when it's not fun or easy. Okay, you're allowed 2 nights a week. Dinner and bedtime, I'm still there, still supervising. You prove you can handle that before we talk about unsupervised time." "Okay." "And White." Her eyes held his. "Your family doesn't exist to them. If Eleanor or Bethany or your father want to suddenly play grandparents, the answer is no. They don't get to reject my daughters and then claim them when it's convenient. They're not going to. I don't care what they want. Those are my terms. Take them or leave them." White thought about his mother's carefully decorated house, his father's expectations, the legacy they'd built that required sacrificing everything real for the appearance of perfection. "I don't need them," he said. "I never did. I just didn't know that until I lost you." Loretta's expression flickered, not softening exactly, but something close. "Then we try this, slowly, carefully. And if you hurt them—" "I won't. You already did, by not being there from the start." She stood, signaling the end. "But maybe you can make up for it. Maybe." White stood too. "Thank you for this chance, for letting me—" "Don't thank me. Prove it." He left her apartment with something fragile budding in his chest. Not hope. Bigger than that. Purpose. He had 2 nights a week with his daughters, had permission to build something real with them. And if Loretta never forgave him, never looked at him with anything except guarded caution, that was fine. The girls were what mattered. Everything else was just noise. Chapter 9. The Long Road. Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, White learned to structure his entire life around those 2 evenings. The first Tuesday, he showed up at 5:30 with nothing but himself and anxiety that threatened to choke him. Loretta answered the door with Elise on her hip and chaos erupting behind her. "Kyla, put your sister down. Oprah, homework first, then TV." White stepped into the whirlwind. This was his daughter's real life. Not museums and staged outings, but daily chaos and tiny battles. I don't know what I'm doing, he admitted. Loretta thrust Elise into his arms. Figure it out. She needs to be changed and I'm making dinner. Elise stared at him with enormous eyes. White stared back, holding her like she was made of spun glass. Diapers in the bathroom, Loretta called from the kitchen. Don't put it on backward. He put it on backward the first time. Elise giggled at his fumbling. By the third attempt, he managed it correctly and felt like he'd won a marathon. Dinner was chicken and rice simple, but Loretta made it work. White helped set the table, 3 purple plastic plates, 3 matching cups. The girls argued about who got which chair even though they were identical. Oprah always sits there. Because I'm the oldest. By 2 minutes. Loretta didn't raise her voice, just gave them the look, the one White was learning to recognize, the one that made 3 chaos agents go silent. They ate. The girls talked over each other, telling stories that made no linear sense. Kyla demonstrated how high she could throw peas. Elise arranged her rice into a face. Oprah ate with careful precision, watching White's reactions to everything. "Why are you here on Tuesday?" Oprah asked finally. Loretta's hands paused on her fork. She'd warned White this was coming. "Because your mama said I could be," White answered carefully. "I want to spend time with you." "But why?" "Because I'm your father." The word landed like a stone in still water. Ripples spread across the table. Kyla's eyes went wide. "You're our daddy." "Biologically, yes, but I haven't earned the right to be called daddy yet." "What does biologically mean?" Elise asked. "It means his body helped make your bodies," Loretta explained. "But being a father is about more than that. It's about being here, day after day, showing up even when it's hard." "Were you not here before?" Oprah's question cut straight through. White wanted to lie, wanted to soften the truth, but Loretta's eyes warned him against it. "No, I wasn't. I made a mistake. A really big one." "What mistake?" "I didn't know you existed, and when I found out, it took me too long to come looking." Oprah processed this with her serious face. "That was dumb." "Yes, it was." "Are you staying now?" "Yes." "Promise?" White looked at Loretta. She gave the smallest nod. "I promise." Kyla launched herself at him, wrapping arms around his neck in a hug that knocked the air from his lungs. "Okay, you can be our daddy." "It's not that simple," Loretta said gently. "White has to keep showing up. Keep being here. Daddies don't get to disappear." "I won't." White managed around the lump in his throat. Elise climbed into his lap. Oprah stayed in her seat, watching, but her expression had shifted, less guarded, cautiously open. After dinner, White helped with homework. Oprah's math worksheet was simple addition, but she approached each problem with the concentration of a surgeon. He guided her through it, watching her face light up when she got answers right. Elise showed him her rock collection. It had grown, filled an entire shoebox with specimens organized by color. She explained the history of each one with the passion of a museum curator. "This one's from the park. This one's from Mrs. Chen's driveway. This one's from the museum where I met you." She'd kept a rock from that first day, had marked it in her memory as important. Kyla demanded he play dolls. White had never touched a doll in his life, but he tried. She corrected his technique with the authority of an expert. "No, this one's the mama. She doesn't talk like that." "How does she talk?" Kyla demonstrated, a voice full of warmth and patience. Loretta's voice. She was playing her mother, giving the doll all the care and attention she'd received. Bath time was warfare. 3 girls in one tub meant water everywhere, arguments about toys, and someone always ending up with soap in their eyes. White's shirt was soaked by the end. He couldn't stop laughing. "You're supposed to keep them in the tub, not flood the bathroom," Loretta said, but she was almost smiling. Story time was sacred. All 3 girls piled onto Loretta's bed while White read from their current book. He did different voices for characters. The girls dissolved into giggles. "Again," Kyla demanded when he finished. "One story," Loretta said firmly. "White has to go home." "Why can't he stay?" Elise asked. "Because he has his own home." Can we see it? White's sparse apartment flashed through his mind. 3 stuffed animals waiting on a couch for children who'd never visited. Maybe someday, Loretta answered before he could. He kissed each forehead before leaving. It felt presumptuous, but they leaned into it like they'd been waiting for permission. Oprah grabbed his hand. You're coming back Thursday? Yes. Promise? Promise. Thursday repeated the pattern. And the Tuesday after that, and the Thursday following. White learned their routines, learned that Oprah needed 30 minutes of quiet time after school, that Elise processed emotions by organizing her collections, that Kyla's energy wasn't hyperactivity, she was anxious, needed movement to feel grounded. He learned to make grilled cheese the way they liked it, cheese all the way to the edges, learned which nightlight each girl needed, learned that I'm fine from any of them meant the opposite. He showed up tired, showed up after brutal days at work, showed up when his mother called screaming about family disgrace. None of it mattered more than being there. 3 months became 4. 4 became 5. The girls started calling him White without the Mr. Loretta stopped supervising every interaction. She'd cook while he helped with homework, trusting him with their daily lives. One Thursday, she asked him to stay after bedtime. I need to talk to you about something. White's stomach dropped. This was it. She was ending the arrangement. But Loretta looked uncertain, not angry. The girls want to come to your apartment. See where you live. Oh. White thought about his empty space. It's not much. They don't care about that. They care that you have a place and they've never seen it. Loretta wrapped her arms around herself. If you're ready, if you want them to come over. I want that more than anything. Okay, this Saturday, just for a few hours. Saturday arrived like Christmas. White cleaned his apartment 3 times, arranged the stuffed animals prominently, bought groceries to make actual food. When they walked in, Kyla ran through every room, claiming territory. Elise examined his bookshelves with intense focus. Oprah stood in the living room, looking around with that careful assessment she used for everything. You have stuffed animals, she said, spotting the bear, rabbit, and owl. I got them for you. For when you visited. I hoped you'd visit. Oprah picked up the bear. Can I keep this one? Yes. Each of you can pick one. They chose quickly. Oprah the bear, Elise the rabbit, Kyla the owl, held them like prizes, like proof they belonged in his space. White made lunch, burned the grilled cheese, and had to start over. The girls found this hilarious. Mama never burns them, Kyla announced. Mama's had more practice. They ate on his couch, watching a kids' show Loretta had approved. Elise fell asleep against his side. Kyla curled up on his other side. Oprah sat slightly apart, but her hand rested near his. Loretta took a photo. White heard the camera click and looked up. For their baby books, she explained, not quite meeting his eyes. When it was time to go, none of them wanted to leave. Can we come back? Elise asked, clutching her rabbit. Anytime your mama says yes. In the doorway, Loretta paused. You're doing good. With them. They're happy when you're around. It was the first compliment she'd given him, the first acknowledgement that he was getting something right. Thank you for letting me try. Don't thank me yet. But her expression had softened fractionally. Barely. It was enough. Chapter 10. Not yet. White's phone lit up at midnight, his mother calling for the 5th time that week. He declined it and rolled over, trying to sleep. Morning would come early. The girls had their school program, and he'd promised to attend. 6 months of Tuesdays and Thursdays had become routine. The girls knew his apartment as well as their own now. Oprah left books on his coffee table. Elise's rocks appeared in strange places, his kitchen windowsill, his bathroom counter. Kyla had declared his closet the best hiding spot and used it constantly during their games. He was part of their lives now, not central. That position belonged solely to Loretta, but present, real. It wasn't enough. White wanted more time, wanted weekends, wanted school drop-offs and doctor's appointments, and all the ordinary moments that built a life. wanted to be daddy instead of White, but Loretta kept him at careful distance, polite, cordial, forever guarded. The school program was chaos. Parents filled a small auditorium, cameras ready. White spotted Loretta near the front, holding 3 purple lunch boxes. He slid into the seat beside her. "You made it," she said, surprise flickering across her face. "I promised." The girls performed a song about seasons. Oprah sang seriously, hitting every note. Elise watched her feet, concentrating hard. Kyla waved at the audience instead of singing. White recorded the whole thing, heart swelling so large he could barely breathe. These were his daughters on stage, living lives he almost missed entirely. Afterward, the girls ran over, still in their construction paper costumes. "Did you see me?" Kyla bounced. "I saw you in the audience." "You were perfect." "I messed up the second verse," Oprah said critically. "I didn't notice." Elise tugged his sleeve. "Can we go to the park after?" White looked at Loretta. She checked her watch, calculating. "We can go for an hour," she decided. The park was walking distance. White fell into step beside Loretta while the girls ran ahead, their energy boundless, despite the performance. "I need to talk to you," he said, Loretta's shoulders tensed. "About what?" "About us. About where this is going." "There is no us, White." "I didn't mean—" He stopped, frustrated. "I want more time with them. Real time. Weekends maybe. Overnights eventually." "Overnights." Loretta's voice went flat. "You want them to sleep at your apartment?" "Not right away, but eventually. Isn't that where this is heading?" "Is it? You tell me, because 6 months ago you didn't know they existed. Now you want custody arrangements? I want to be their father." "You are their father. You have been for 6 months, but that doesn't mean you get to rearrange their entire lives because you're ready for more." White felt anger spark, rare for him, but present. "I've done everything you asked, shown up every time, proved myself over and over. What else do you need?" Loretta stopped walking, turned to face him with fury in her eyes. "What else do I need? How about the 4 years you weren't there? How about the nights I didn't sleep because I was terrified they'd stop breathing? How about the first time Kyla broke her arm and I had to hold her down while they set it and she screamed for her daddy who didn't exist? I'm here now. Now. That's the word you keep using, like 6 months erases everything else." Loretta's voice shook. "You want credit for showing up? You want applause for being present? That's not what You threw me away, White. Called me not good enough. Do you understand what that did? Not just to me, but to them. They exist because of something you called a mistake. I never said they were... You didn't have to. You said I wasn't good enough for your family. They're part of me. That means they're not good enough either." White felt gutted. "That's not true. That's not what I meant. But it's what you said. And words matter. Choices matter. You made yours 4 years ago." The girls had stopped playing, sensing tension. They stood near the slide, watching their mother and White argue. Loretta lowered her voice. "I've let you into their lives because they need to know their father, because I won't take that from them just because I'm hurt. But that doesn't mean I've forgiven you. That doesn't mean we're building towards some happy ending where we're all one big family. What are we building toward then? Co-parenting. That's it. You get to be their dad, be part of their lives, but don't expect me to forget what you did. Don't expect me to trust you with my whole heart when you proved once that you'll break it." White's chest felt hollow. "So this is it? Forever at arm's length?" "Maybe, I don't know." Loretta wrapped her arms around herself. "You can't unthrow someone, White. Can't take back words. Can't erase the choice you made. People change. People disappoint. I've learned that lesson too many times." She started walking toward the girls. "You want more time? Fine. We'll work out a schedule. You can have them Saturdays full day, but they sleep at home. With me, where they're safe." "You don't think they're safe with me?" "I don't know what I think." Loretta's voice broke slightly. "I just know I can't lose them, and trusting you with more feels like stepping off a cliff." She called the girls over. They came running, oblivious to the tension. "White's going to start having special Saturdays with you," Loretta announced. "Just you and him. Would you like that?" Three faces lit up. Yes. Can we go to the zoo again? Oprah asked. Or the science place? Elise added. Can White teach me to ride a bike? Kyla bounced. He promised. Did I? White looked at Kyla's expectant face. You said maybe. Maybe means yes if you ask enough times. Despite everything, White smiled. Then yes, I'll teach you to ride a bike. They walked back to Loretta's apartment. The girls chatted the whole way, planning elaborate Saturday adventures. White listened, filing away every request, every hope. At Loretta's door, the girls hugged him goodbye. These embraces had become natural, no longer tentative, just pure affection. See you Thursday, Elise called. And Saturday, Kyla added. Oprah lingered. Are you and Mama fighting? White crouched to her level. We were talking about grown-up things. Sometimes grown-ups disagree. But you're not leaving. No, never. Promise? Promise. She hugged him tight, then followed her sisters inside. Loretta stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the light behind her. They need you, she said quietly. And I won't take that from them because of what you took from me. I know I can't fix the past. No, you can't. Her expression was tired, sad. But you can be here now, day by day, showing them what you should have shown me 4 years ago. And us? Is there any world where... Don't. She held up her hand. Don't ask me that. Don't make this about us when it's about them. I need you to be their father. I can't carry the weight of being your redemption too. That's not what Isn't it? Loretta's eyes held his. You show up, you're present, you love them well. That's all I need from you. Anything else is too complicated. Too much. She closed the door gently. Not a slam. That would have been easier. Just a quiet ending to a conversation that wouldn't resolve tonight. White stood in the hallway for a long moment, processing everything he'd wanted forgiveness. Wanted to step into a ready-made family and erase his failures. Wanted Loretta to look at him with something other than guarded caution. But that wasn't how this worked. He'd thrown her away, told her she wasn't good enough, missed 4 years of his daughter's lives because cowardice was easier than courage. He couldn't unthrow someone. Loretta was right about that. But he could be here now, every Tuesday, every Thursday, every Saturday. Could show up when it was hard, when he was tired, when old patterns whispered that walking away was easier, could prove that 6 months was just the beginning, that he'd be here for 6 more months, 6 more years, 60 more if life gave him that long the girls needed him. They'd wrapped him into their lives with the fearless trust of children who'd been taught that people who made promises kept them. He wouldn't betray that trust, wouldn't give Loretta another reason to doubt him. And maybe, eventually, she'd stop looking at him like he might vanish. Maybe her walls would lower, maybe not yet could become something else. Or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe she'd never forgive him. Maybe the best he could hope for was civil co-parenting and 3 daughters who knew his love, even if their mother couldn't trust it. If that was his life, he'd accept it, would build something real from the ruins of his mistakes. He walked to his car, pulled out his phone, and texted Loretta, Saturday, 9 a.m. I'll pick them up. Thank you for trusting me with them. Her response came immediately. Don't make me regret it. White drove home to his small apartment where 3 stuffed animals sat on a shelf now, well-loved and worn from constant attention, where children's drawings covered his refrigerator, where evidence of his daughters existed in every corner. He was here, present, part of their lives, and if Loretta never gave him anything more than that, it would have to be enough. Not because it was what he deserved, but because it was what they needed. The long road stretched ahead. Months and years of proving himself, of showing up, of earning the title Daddy that 3 girls might someday give him. He'd walk every step of it, not for redemption, not for forgiveness, but for Oprah, Elise, and Kyla, his daughters, worth everything he'd lost and everything he'd never have again.